What is up, guys? Rick Smackus here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we are taking a full 6-man fire team, all using the new Eyes of Tomorrow Deepstone Crypt Raid exotic rocket launcher through the entirety of the largest raid in Destiny 2 history, Last Wish, to see how it really performs in an endgame environment. And so, let's get started. Now, first things first, let's take a look at this weapon. It has two unique perks. Firstly, intrinsically, it has Eyes on All. This weapon is capable of tracking and firing at multiple targets simultaneously. It has another unique perk, Adaptive Ordnance. Killing 4 or more combatants in a single volley increases the damage of the next volley. So, starting things off, we have the first encounter against Kalli. So normally I talk about a weapon's performance, killing the baseline adds, but because this is a rocket launcher, and because you only have 8 rounds in total, no matter how much rocket launcher reserves you put on, you really want to be saving your ammo for the actual boss fight. So let's just talk about that. The interesting thing about this rocket, and I did a video detailing, it in several different activities and a bunch of its strengths and weaknesses, but one of the main weaknesses is the fact that this weapon does significantly less damage against bosses. Like, if you just shoot it at red bars, at yellow bars, whatever, you're gonna notice that you get significantly higher damage numbers than if you're targeting, well, as you can see, Kalli here. So, as a result, it is actually not that good against actually damaging Kalli. You can see that although we had the help of bubbles and wells and tethers, and you're actually shooting this thing pretty darn fast if you were, as I was, using double rocket launcher reloader, it just doesn't put forth enough damage to one phase Kalli. We were able to finish her off pretty easily in the second phase, but remember, Kalli has a ton of health and then has an extra crit multiplier for her head, which you're obviously not really hitting with this rocket launcher. So can it perform better in the other encounters? That's what we gotta find out, but as for Kalli, I'm giving it a 5 out of 10, perfectly average. Moving on to the second encounter against Shuro Chi, things should heat up. So, with Shuro Chi, there's no hiding away in a door and doing more damage later. You need to do 1/6 of her health or your entire team wipes. So, can it get the job done? Well, as you can see, no. But also, as you can see at the exact same time, yes. So, wait, how is this working? Because I literally have gameplay playing of our fire team wiping on Shuro Chi and also progressing pretty easily. So, what we actually found out is that when you're using the Eyes of Tomorrow, you actually want to put some distance between yourselves and the target. When we were too close to Shuro Chi, it seemed like the rockets didn't prime in time, or some of them missed, and we got a lot of shots that didn't have any damage numbers pop up. But when we took it further back and shot Shuro Chi from a distance, we had no problems, and we got to those damage caps every single time. So that's another interesting quirk about this weapon. Furthermore, on Shuro Chi, there's a lot more adds, and against those guys, oh my goodness, this thing is insane. That's really kind of where a lot of people think this thing is meant to be, at just decimating adds, and it does a fantastic job because there is often a ton of enemies on your screen at once, and you can just swipe while aiming down your entire screen, lock onto a bunch of enemies, and just completely eliminate dozens of enemies with a single volley. It is phenomenal against those guys. So, great against the adds, pretty darn good against Shuro Chi. Like, we were able to damage her no problem once we step back. So here, I've got to give it an 8 out of 10. It is a pretty good weapon. Moving on from there, however, we have Morgeth. And we going for that one phase. Can this weapon do against Morgeth what it failed to do against Kalli? Well, starting out, we do have a bunch of adds, as you would expect. This weapon is pretty fantastic, especially when the poor Eyes of Riven try to spawn in, oh, they just get absolutely decimated. But of course, you kind of only shoot your rocket if you already see some rocket ammo on the ground and you know you're going to recuperate that for the boss encounter. But speaking of, let's talk about that boss encounter. So, as you can see, the damage output is actually pretty significant against Morgeth, but there's a big catch, and you're gonna see myself succumb to that catch within this damage phase, and that is rockets explode, and sometimes they explode pretty close to you because Morgeth shoots out those little orbs that do damage to you. Normally, like, those don't matter very much, especially because you can tank their damage in a well usually, but your rockets from Eyes of Tomorrow will hit them and they will explode, and you can get yourself killed as a result. So although the damage is there and we did end up getting the one phase, probably not the best weapon to use against this damage phase for the reason that it can get you killed and it's kind of hard to be constantly moving out of the way of those incoming gloops, whatever they're called. So here, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for that reason. Good damage-wise, but practicality-wise, it had some issues. Moving on from there, we have the Vault encounter. And here, I always say this encounter is one of the most interesting because you just have a bunch of boss fights in this raid, but this encounter gives you a look into how a weapon is going to perform just normally when you're playing the game because you're not always fighting raid bosses. And here, oh my goodness. Like, as you can see, you one-shot, literally one-shot the Yellow Bar Knights that are trying to wipe your team. I don't think I've ever had a weapon do that. We've taken rocket launchers into this raid before. They don't one-shot. Now, it should be noted that after a while of using this weapon, there were some times I didn't get a one-shot. Now, that's because, as you can sometimes see in the corner of my screen, I have Godslayer warheads. That comes from the Argent Ordnance mod. It's a charged with light mod where if you are charged with light, your rocket launchers do more damage. So that is pretty substantial. That basically gives you, the same amount of extra damage as if you had a buff from a bubble. If you do have a bubble buff or you're in a well, that supersedes it. But also you have the intrinsic trait of this weapon offering a damage bonus as well. So what we kind of figured out is that if you have a damage bonus from one of those things, so if you're in a bubble, if you're in a well, if you have Godslayer warheads, or possibly if you have adaptive ordnance active as well, like if you have some sort of damage boost, you can get the one-shot kill, which is fantastic. Like, holy crap, to one-shot a knight is huge in this encounter. But if you don't have anything, it's going to not one-shot, but it will leave the knight pretty much finishable. So for this encounter, the fact that it puts forth that much damage, it is truly insane. I've got to give it a 9 out of 10 here, like nearly a 10 out of 10. I think the only reason keeping it from that is that sometimes you don't get the one-shots. Anyways, it's time to move on to the big daddy of damage phases against Riven. And we going for the cheese. How much damage can we do against Riven? Well, right off the bat, we got a problem. If you aim down sights against Riven, the eyes can become an issue, and the rockets can kind of go awry. So what we chose to do is to hip fire directly into Riven's mouth to try to avoid eye damage. And as you can see, when we do that, we get a pretty significant amount of damage. I mean, 2 of us did over 400,000 damage, but some of us did significantly less. So we decided to have another go, and as you can see, we did a lot more damage with almost all of us getting well above 400k, almost touching 500k. So we actually decided to stand on the little ledges to get us a little bit closer and give us a little bit of a better angle against Riven. And when we did that, as you can see, I was actually capable of reaching 550,000 damage. And I mean, if we all did that good of damage, we might have even been able to one phase, but here's the thing, guys, that's never gonna happen. Basically, what this is illustrating is how different each volley can be, because you actually do get like a crit damage bonus when you hit Riven's actual like mouth, right? But if you don't, if you hit the mandibles, your damage tanks. And the nature of this rocket means that there's some randomness to where the rockets go, and it's just never going to work out every single time. So it's pretty much impossible to consistently get high damage. Sometimes you're just going to get low damage just by the nature of where the rockets go, and therefore, in this encounter, the damage actually isn't that bad, but the consistency is absolutely lacking. And therefore, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10 against Riven. Certainly above average, not quite able to one phaser. But moving on from there, we do have the Queenswalk encounter left. How is the Eyes of Tomorrow here? Well, as you can see, it's actually fantastic. In the first part where you come out of Riven's mouth, there are so many ads in front of you, and the Eyes of Tomorrow clears out all of them. You don't get that lesser damage to bosses here. Oh no. So it absolutely devastates those guys. If you do get teleported inside as well, it's very good against those knights, just like how it performed in the vault encounter. It decimates ads here as well. So in the Eyes encounter, it's one of the best weapons I've actually ever seen here, and I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 for the Queenswalk. Like, oh my goodness, it was fun to use here. In any event, guys, that is it for the raid, but we still have the overall ranking. How was this weapon throughout the entirety of Last Wish? Honestly, I think it deserves an 8 out of 10. There was certainly some encounters, it was very good. Vault, Shuro Chi, Queenswalk, but other encounters like Kalli and obviously Riven, it's not so good. So overall, that's the rating. Definitely a fun and different weapon to use. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, found it informative, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.